Just to make sure, can you guys see my screen line? Fine.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good evening if you're joining from other parts of the world. I'm Rijuta Kapoor, Senior Program Manager, Microsoft. Today, we have the pleasure of talking about a very relevant topic about cyber threat intelligence. The agenda for today's topic is first, we'll spend some time just talking about the threat intelligence journey in Sentinel, starting from what investments Microsoft Sentinel has already made in threat intelligence area. We'll learn different features that Sentinel offers today in the threat intelligence portion. And then from there, we'll spend some time talking about Risk IQ and Sentinel together. I know this is one of top of minds for most of our customers right now. That how Risk IQ is going to integrate with Sentinel and other products with the recent Risk IQ acquisition that Microsoft did last year. Followed by that, we will talk a little bit about a hunting scenario with TI, in which we are going to show you a real world demo with real indicators of compromise. So I would definitely recommend not trying these indicators on your machines at home, in your offices, because these are real indicators that we would be working with. These are malicious IPs and domains. So just wanted to warn everybody on that. And then we'll spend some time talking about your questions. We would be more than happy to answer any questions you folks have. So without your delay, I want to dive into the first part, which is all around TI. So before we get started, I think it's super important to set the stage right so that all of us are talking the same terms. So let's spend some time talking about what threat intelligence is. Threat intelligence is any data that can help you protect your organization against known actors, malicious activity, etc. And how I generally like to classify TI is into three buckets. It's tactical TI, operational TI, and strategic threat intelligence. So what is tactical TI? Tactical TI is the most basic form of threat intelligence, starting from indicators or observed data. These are the most actionable form of threat intelligence, especially for products like SIM solutions. These are ones where, you have an IP, it's malicious, that's threat intelligence data, and you can match it against your event data, whether it's coming from your firewalls or your proxy logs or your endpoint detection logs, etc. So that's all about tactical TI. Operational TI, on the other hand, is more contextual threat intelligence, things like tools and techniques that are utilized for a particular attack. And strategic TI is even advanced than operational threat intelligence. It's more around, who's the actor, what are their motivations behind a particular campaign? Is there like a report published about this actor? Things like that fall under the strategic TI category. So now what Sentinel has done is recently Microsoft Sentinel has developed a capability called Content Hub, which is a one-stop location for finding any content that is related that you want to download and install in Microsoft Sentinel. Within Microsoft Sentinel Content Hub, we have a threat intelligence solution. This solution is mostly all you need to get access to all out-of-the-box features, starting from data connectors, which will help you import threat intelligence into the product. Once the data is imported, you obviously want to put it to use by matching it against your event data. So there are a ton of analytic rules and hunting queries that we provide to take action on this TI data to put it to use for matching purposes so that you can protect your organization. And then it also provides a workbook which helps you understand how your TI is performing. In a moment, we'll dive deep into each of these components, whether it's data connectors or analytics or the workbook or the hunting queries. So this is one place where I would recommend going and downloading all relevant threat intelligence content that's published by Microsoft. So let's just spend some time talking about different areas where threat intelligence is sprinkled in Sentinel. So threat intelligence is one of those areas which spans across, data connectors and analytics and investigation. It is just one of those areas where if I give you like a million IPs or a million domains and tell these are malicious, they really are not too much of a value. But when this threat intelligence is used with other areas in the product, whether it's incidents or investigations or analytics, that's when this becomes gold actually. So today, Sentinel offers multiple ways of importing threat intelligence. I would say they are of three types. The first is obviously the basic data connectors. Data connectors are the vehicle by which you import different kinds of data into the product, whether it's threat intelligence or event data. For threat intelligence, there are two data connectors that Sentinel offers today. One is the threat intelligence taxi connector, and the other one is the threat intelligence platforms connector. The threat intelligence taxi connector is essentially a taxi 2.0, 2.1 client. It supports both taxi 2.0 and taxi 2.1. For folks who don't know what taxi is, there is an organization called OSIS who has created something called Stix Taxi. Stix is actually the schema that they have developed for sharing threat intelligence, and Taxi is the protocol over which threat intelligence is shared. So let's just talk a little bit about why Stix Taxi is even important. Why should anybody follow the schema? Threat intelligence sharing, happens across the board. And one challenge that most organizations encounter is that different people put different fields on the threat intelligence data, and there is not one requirement fit all scenario. So what OSIS has done is they have developed the Stix schema, which is super, super detailed and helps everybody come on the same schema for sharing threat intelligence. This in the long run makes threat intelligence sharing, consumption across the board way easy for all products, whether it's your firewalls or your SIMs. If they can consume data in Stix Taxi format, Stix format, half the battle is actually achieved there itself. Sentinel took a huge bet on taxi, and within a moment, we'll see how our taxi journey has evolved. So the other data connector we provide is the threat intelligence platforms data connector. This data connector is actually for consuming data that is not in Stix format. There are still many tips who don't support Stix Taxi, whether it's Palo Alto MindMeld or the open source Mist tip. This data connector is based off an API of Microsoft. It's a proprietary API called the Graph Security API, which can be used to ingest data into Sentinel. So how the data flow works is you push the data from your tip product, whether it's Mist or MindMeld or Threat Connect, and then you push it to Graph, and from Graph you push it to Sentinel. So these are the two data connectors that we offer today. Recently, we launched a feature. It's still in private preview, coming out pretty soon to public preview, which is our flat file import, which is going to allow customers to, like yourselves, to import threat intelligence from a flat file. As I mentioned earlier, Stix Taxi is the way we suggest, but the bitter truth is still a lot of threat intelligence sharing happens across Teams channels and Slack channels and over emails where analysts share certain subsets of TI, whether it's malicious IPs, domains, URLs, file hashes in flat files. This feature is going to allow you to import that area of threat intelligence that's coming in flat files directly into Sentinel so that you can use it for matching automatically against your event data. And last but not the least is our playbooks category. Playbooks are a great way by which you can use threat intelligence. One of the cases by which you don't actually import threat intelligence into the product is the enrichment use case. And how this enrichment use case works is, say, for example, there is a subset of TI. You don't want to import it into Sentinel. A classic example of such kind of, information is GeoIP data or, passive DNS or whose information, which is super huge in size. And it really doesn't make sense to import all of that data into Sentinel. So what you can do is you can use playbooks. And what these playbooks do perform is they act on incident data. Any incident that is created within Sentinel, if it has entities, what you can do is use these playbooks to enrich these entities with this kind of information. So what essentially it does is takes the entities out of the incidents and reaches out to whatever your location is. Say, for example, you want to look at a GeoIP information from MaxMind, for example. What you can do is just connect to their APIs, reach out as a call. You can send the entities, get the information about the geolocation, and then enrich the incidents with this information. This information actually shows under the comment section of the incident. There are tons and tons of playbooks that our partners have developed. For example, folks from Reversing Labs or Risk IQ or Recorded Future. There are all these playbooks that are available today, both in the Sentinel GitHub as well as the Sentinel Content Hub. I would highly recommend trying these out and using them to enrich your incidents. So as I was telling earlier, we have these taxi integrations. Sentinel took a huge bet. When we started our journey with taxi, we had like 2 partners, I think. And as of today, we have 15 plus partners who have come across. They support Stix Taxi to help customers ingest data into Sentinel very easily with Stix Taxi. And this is very little uplift from the customer's perspective. You practically need 4 fields like a API root URL, the collection ID for your taxi server, and the credentials. And then you just have to come on the Sentinel UI, put these 5 fields, and you're off to the races. Your data starts flowing into Sentinel. So it is the turnaround time for setting up a taxi integration is way little. Most of our customers set it up within 5 to 10 minutes. So definitely a great way to integrate and bring threat intelligence into the product. So now we talked about all the ways by which we can bring TI into the product. Once it makes into the product, there are various ways by which you can view this threat intelligence. As many of you might know, Sentinel is a SIEM solution that's based off log analytics. Log analytics is one of our primary stores for data. And within log analytics, threat intelligence has a dedicated table. It is this table called the Threat Intelligence Indicators table, shows up under Microsoft Sentinel. It is an intensive schema. And it allows you to look at fields like where did the TI come from? What do we know about its threat type? How confident we are about this TI? What is the traffic level light protocol about this? Whether it's shareable in terms of green and white, or is it red and amber and cannot be shared, for example. It allows you to give like a description and obviously the actual observable. You can add tags, etc. to this data inside this TI table. So this is one place. The other place where you can look at threat intelligence is actually a GUI-based UI that we have developed. This is done so that you don't have to write KQL queries in log analytics. It's easy interactable UI where you can create your TI, you can search, sort, filter your TI. It shows under the threat management menu. It is called threat intelligence right here. As you see, you can apply filters, you can search, you can create more TI, you can edit TI here and delete TI as well. So this is all around, we learned about, sure, we brought the data into the product. Now we've looked into it. We're seeing our data looks great, but what next? The next was the most important step, I would say, in this journey, where we use this data to power analytics. Sentinel today offers around 26 out-of-the-box analytic rules. And what these rules do is they basically match different log types with different indicator types. One of the examples that I have reflected here is TI map domain entity with DNS logs. What this is going to do is take every single domain indicator that you have ingested into Microsoft Sentinel in the threat intelligence indicators table. If it is a domain indicator, we'll pick it up from there and match it against your DNS logs. If a match is received, we generate alerts and incidents. These 26 rules are all KQL based rules, so 100% customizable. It is up to you. You can actually clone them, create new analytics with your custom log sources, etc. And they span across various event types. This is just one example of domain with DNS entity I had provided. There are other examples like match my IP entity with sign-in logs, or Office activity logs, or AWS CloudTrail logs. These are all the different types of event data. Similarly, we match it against different indicator data like domains, entities, file hashes, emails, IP addresses, URLs, etc. So I would highly recommend using these 27 rules to try to use them, power your analytics so that you actually put your TI to work. Now that you've brought in all this TI, you can also see an overview of your TI in terms of workbooks. These are visualization charts, completely customizable. Again, they are based off KQL as well. So they're completely customizable. You can change the charts according to what you think is fit. Some of the most valuable charts we've heard from customers is there is a chart in this threat intelligence workbook in Sentinel that allows you to understand the uniqueness of your threat intelligence sources. Say maybe you're getting in TI from Anomaly and then Threat Connect and then Reversing Labs. Your end goal is that there is very little overlap between the TI that you bring in, just because if you're bringing in anyways, the more overlap you have, the less coverage you are actually getting, because you're getting the same indicator from 3 different sources. So there is a chart which evaluates that and tells you what is the uniqueness percentage of your threat intelligence sources. Another very valuable chart is we show you like how many incidents and alerts got created with indicator data. So these are some of the things that are super insightful with this workbook. So now we've talked a lot about your own threat intelligence in the product. I want to spend some time talking about Microsoft generated threat intelligence. This is a constant ask from all our customers. They say that Microsoft TI is one of the best TI we know exists on the planet. How do we get access to this TI? So today Sentinel offers a capability called the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Analytics, which is essentially a black box rule which takes your event data and matches against Microsoft generated TI. Every time we see a match, we create alerts and incidents. One thing I do want to point out, this is not like a KQL matching analytic. It is smarter than that and more intelligent, I should say. And when I say why it is more intelligent, what I mean is, say we match against your firewall logs, just as an example to take up here. And we see that the traffic is already blocked by your firewall. We will still generate an alert and incident for you, but it will be like an informational or a low severity incident. Whereas if it is allowed traffic, sure, that is super important because the indicators we use here are super high fidelity, most of them being like nation state indicators that Microsoft is harnessing. So definitely we want you to know and act on those those incidents quickly because your firewall did not block traffic. So in that case, we'll create a high or high severity alert and incident. So if you see that this is more intelligent, we actually try to understand the context of the event itself and then create alerts and incidents for you. Once we see a match, we also give you the matched indicator, which shows up in your threat intelligence menu that I had shown a couple of minutes back, which is here. It also shows up in the log analytics TI table. So you also get access to the actual indicator if it gets matched. Without due delay, I want to get into the whole story about Risk IQ since we're talking about Microsoft TI. As you all know, Microsoft acquired Risk IQ in the last year. And what is Risk IQ? Risk IQ is an organization company that does attack surface management. They have billions and billions of, relationships on the internet that they harness and get great knowledge and indicators out of that. One of the best TI around attack surface management, they have a huge repository of passive total data, passive DNS data that they have acquired over the years. And the plan for Microsoft is to integrate this plethora of Risk IQ TI that Risk IQ has acquired and consolidated over the years with various Microsoft products, whether it's, Microsoft Defender 365 or Microsoft Sentinel. It will integrate with all products of Microsoft. Today, we'll spend some time talking about how it becomes better with Sentinel. So Risk IQ currently already offers a solution in the Content Hub. It is called the Risk IQ Illuminate solution. What it does is it is a set of playbooks that allow you to import Risk IQ TI and also use it for enrichment of incidents. The exact use case that I had walked a couple of minutes back when we were talking about playbooks. These are around 27 playbooks. I would recommend trying them out. Super simple to set up. All you need is your Risk IQ API key and secret to set up these playbooks. You go to the Content Hub, download the content, install it, and you should be off to the races. There are future integrations that we are planning right now. For example, we want to include Risk IQ TI in the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Matching Analytics so that you get the value contextual feed for yourself right out of the door. We will also enrich various Sentinel experiences with the great passive DNS information that Risk IQ has, whether it is the threat intelligence data itself or incidents and investigation. All of that will be enriched with passive DNS. So stay tuned. There is lots coming in terms of Risk IQ and Sentinel story together. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to Chris to take over and just walk us through the nation state actor demo and the scenario that Sreedhar is going to demo today for us. After you, Chris.
Definitely. Thank you, Rijuta, for the great demonstration when it comes to what we have right now as part of Sentinel TI and the different capabilities that we currently have. For this phase of the webinar, we definitely want to do more of like demonstration and show you the out-of-the-box content that we actually have in Sentinel to really give you that value when it comes to staying appraised of these different attacks. So how do you actually stay appraised of a nation state attack like Noblium? So the threat actor for this webinar, or the focus, is Noblium. So Noblium is a nation state attack. It was a Russian sponsored group of hackers. And honestly, this is one of the most sophisticated attacks in history. Noblium is the same actor behind SolarWinds. I think most of us know what SolarWinds is, and we actually went through a very dramatic experience when it comes to that in 2020. And the target for Noblium was downstream customers of multiple cloud services providers or managed service providers and also other IT services organizations. So they were definitely looking for those third-party organizations that had a trusted relationship with either a Azure AD environment. So that was definitely their main focus. In the next slide here, we will show you quickly a bit of the campaign or the different lateral movement that they were doing. So Rijuta, if you could just go to the next slide. Thank you. This just quickly shows you exactly what they were doing. Again, the main focus here is the IT providers, the cloud services providers. Social engineering was definitely key for the success of this campaign. So using phishing emails as a way to get into the environment was definitely critical. And then from there, just moving laterally and conducting credential theft was another way to steal passwords and be able to hinder services. Now, once they got to the on-premise access, it was really more about just getting that command and control to have that remote access solution when it comes to these different corporations. Now, we definitely want to show you how you could have been appraised with Microsoft Sentinel's threat intel. And again, us incorporating the Microsoft threat intel into the native product on how Microsoft can really help you out when it comes to being appraised. So as Rijuta mentioned, there's definitely many ways that you can actually ingest data into Sentinel via taxi, via tip. You can also do it via playbooks. And then, of course, you can also do it by importing indicators via a flat file. That can be a JSON or if not a CSV file. So once you actually bring that data, again, you also have the Microsoft Sentinel or the Microsoft Threat Intel into the Sentinel product. All that information is also stored when it comes to your log analytics workspace. Next slide. So for this demonstration, we want to focus on the indicator of compromise, which is this IP address. Just quick disclaimer, please do not do this in your own environment. It could be very, very risky. This is just for demonstration purposes to show you how powerful Microsoft's threat intel is when it comes to Sentinel. So here we have the indicator of compromise, which is 94.237.100.32. And as you can see, one of the great things that we currently have is the out of the box content when it comes to Sentinel. And we do have threat intel mapping. So by going into the analytics tab and going into TI map, you can actually see all the different analytics that we have for automatic TI mapping and the different data sources that we also provide and we actually support when it comes to Sentinel. So once you actually enable these different analytics, if we actually find a match, it will then elevate that into an incident. And then from there, if we do find a match, that indicator will be published to the threat intel indicators table for additional investigation and also documenting when it comes to the overall attack. Next slide. So after we find the attack, this is where Sentinel really provides flexible options when it comes to automation and also orchestration. It really provides different entry points or pivot points on how you can actually add more context or do more to fine tune, maybe add that that IOC part of a watch list, or if not, we can always revert to the better together story that we currently have with Risk IQ. The next here we have Sreedhar to do a quick demo on everything that I just covered and how you can actually use Microsoft Sentinel's out-of-the-box TI to stay appraised of a nation-state attack like Noblium. Sreedhar?
Thanks, Chris. I would like to share my screen. Give me a minute. Are you able to see my screen? A quick thumbs up would be great.
Yep. All
okay,
good.
Awesome. Thank you, Rijuta, and thank you, Chris. And special thanks to Chris because thanks for explaining the recent nationwide activity, Nobilium. And this demonstrates our today's growing cyber attacks. So my demo consists of how we can hunt these type of attacks. Okay, so I'm going to threat intelligence blade. Okay, this blade will show you all the threat indicators, okay, where you imported from the different data sources. And all these threat indicators powers your analytical rules in order to detect your security threats. And in this demo, I would like to take the same example of Nobilium and how we can detect this threat in your environment. So if you go to analytic rules, as I mentioned, the most important case for all these threat indicators in Microsoft Sentinel is to power analytic rules for quick threat detection. In your analytics rule, if you search for TI map, you will see all the threat intelligence analytical rules that can help you in order to detect security threats in your organization. And in this particular demo, I would like to show you the recent announcements of threat intelligence matching. Okay, this is our threat intelligence analytics analytical rule. Not this one, sorry. Let's say, sorry about that. Okay, this is our recent threat intelligence matching analytical rule, and this generates an alert based on the Microsoft generated TI, and this will create a alert, and also it creates an incident based on the Microsoft TI, and these alerts are high fidelity and turned on by default. If you take the same example of Nobilium, so how we will match the Nobilium threat actor based on the IP address. This analytical rule maps to the IP address. By default, as I mentioned, this analytical rule is turned on default. So this analytical rule created a couple of incidents in my environment. If you go to the incidents tab here, and if I go last 14 days, the recent incident is on this particular analytical rule generated on 12th, which is 2 days back. If you see here, this is the incident that got created with TI match threat intelligence matching analytics. And if you want to see what are the events that are involved in this incident, if you click on these events, it will take you to 1 minute. So this is a common security log, and this is the real IOC indicator. So as mentioned, okay, don't try it at our home. Okay, this will be demoed by experts only. So don't try at your home with this IP address. This is a real IOC indicator. And this is coming to my common security log, okay? And the device that got this indicator is my Palo Alto firewall device. And this incident is tagged as high severity. Why it is tagged as a high severity? Because one of the device action, this device is allowing this IP address. That's why this is tagged as high severity. And if you go back to your Microsoft Sentinel portal, and if you want to auto remediate these high severity alerts using the automation, we can also do that using our playbooks. If you go to full details, and you will see your intelligence here, your recent alerts, okay? And if you go to your playbooks here, and if I say block IP, somehow my internet is acting little weird. Please give me a minute. It's taking little time. I don't know, even I'm connected to hardwired. Come on. Okay. Okay, this is my block IP Palo Alto. So from here, I can easily run the playbook so that it will block those particular IP addresses. This is the advantage of having your SOAR. Also, you can integrate along with your threat intelligence. So you can remediate without any human intervention whenever there is a high severity alert, like parallel for IPs related thing. You can immediately block those IP addresses before navigating into your network. this is my first part of my demo. And the second part of the demo, I would like to show you how to integrate your risk IQ threat indicators into our TI repository. For that, I would like to go to my community edition of Risk IQ. For example, I will show you the Risk IQ community edition. Okay. So this is my Risk IQ community edition. For example, as Rijuta mentioned, okay, Risk IQ has the huge repository of threat intelligence because the Risk IQ analyzes the vast data that is currently available in the internet, and also all the internet supported infrastructures around the world. They analyzes trillions and trillions of IOC indicators every day. And these are all the featured articles on the front page the Risk IQ will show you. So if you are really proactive to hunt threats based on the evolving cyber threats across the world, you can bring Risk IQ IOC indicators into Microsoft Sentinel. But this integration is done via Security Graph API. If you have a license with Risk IQ, you can also integrate Sentinel with Risk IQ under your account settings. For now, for example, if let's go to this first Risk IQ fingerprinting Blue Rattle C4. It has 132 indicators. When you click on this particular IOC, okay, if you go to public indicators, in this public indicators, it will show both IPs and also the domains. For example, if you want to create a IOC indicator for IPs or IOC indicators for domains, you just simply go to any IP indicator and go to Microsoft here. Under Microsoft, it will, if you say create alert for this IP address, it will create a IOC indicator in your threat intelligence platform via Security Graph API. If you want to create any domain related indicator, just go back and click on the domain and go to your Microsoft tab and click on create alert for this organization. And once it is grayed out, that means it created a IOC indicator in your threat intelligence indicator. For example, if you go back to Microsoft Sentinel and go to threat intelligence, I can show you in both logs and as well as if you search here. Our search is taking little time, so I will show you in logs. Okay, for example, this is one of the query threat intelligence indicator where domain name is spectrum of innovation. If you click on run, you will see the indicator. Okay, and this indicator is coming from the Risk IQ, and the source system is Security Graph API. And this is created via the Risk IQ. So this is the way you can bring the IOC indicators. And as soon as the IOC indicator is in your TI repository using the analytic rules, this is one of the important use case of our analytics. These analytic rules powers up your threat indicators. For example, you can go to TI map. All these analytical rules that mapping to different data sources will always check for the raw events in your source system, and it will create alerts and it will create incidents based on the threat indicators you imported from the different source systems. So yeah, with that said, I successfully completed my 2 demos. So I would like to give it back to Rijuta.
Thank you so much, Sreedhar. I think we have a couple of minutes. We are open to any questions. I think Sreedhar, Chris, and I can are more than happy to answer any questions from the community.
Great, Rijuta. Would you mind sharing your presentation with the conclusion slides?
Sure.
Thank you. Great. We do have a few questions. The first one is CTI only for past services? Can we get this service for IaaS? Let's say if I have Azure VM enabled with syslog via AMA or OMS agent, how do I enable CTI in Sentinel? By connecting to syslog connector, or is there something extra we need?
So CTI is not like a syslog data. What you can do is if you have any kind of CTI, as I had walked earlier, you can connect it using your taxi connector if it's hosted on a taxi server. If it is not, you can use the Graph Security API, which is based using the Threat Intelligence Platforms connector to convert your CTI data, your threat intelligence data, into the acceptable format for Graph, and then push it into Sentinel. So those are the options that I would recommend.
Great. The next one is, so with this integration of risk IQ data, what happens to the playbooks long term?
Yes. So right now the playbooks are using the older version of the risk IQ API. In the coming months, that is going to be migrated to use the upcoming new Microsoft branded risk IQ version. So those playbooks will start utilizing the Microsoft branded risk IQ portal, and they will still be available for enrichment purposes.
Great, thank you. The next one is, how granular can you give API permissions to just the TII indicator table so other subsidiaries in architecture can leverage it? Hoping to limit it just to that table, is it possible?
So how the Graph Security API works is it is a per tenant level API. It definitely requires elevated permission because that TI makes it into all workspaces within the tenant that have the tip connector enabled. So you will need global admin or security admin permissions for enabling that data connector. And once that data, once you give that permission, ingest it using Graph API, it makes it into all workspaces and can be queried. Also, you can query data from in LA across the board using for MSSP, especially, for example, this is a scenario where you can use Lighthouse to query data again against different workspaces. So those are your options here.
Great, thanks. The next one is, while installing from Content Hub, can we select only analytic rule, excluding other content such as workbook, playbook, etc.?
Right. So the way Content Hub works is it is only a repository from where you can download the data. Content Hub does not enable the data set. So what you can do is download all the content, including data connectors, playbooks, and workbook and analytics. But what you will have to go and do in Sentinel is you will actually have to visit each of the individual galleries to enable them so that they start working. So for example, you download it from the threat intelligence solution. If you want to just use analytics, what I would recommend doing is enable only the analytic rules in this case and don't enable like the workbooks and playbooks. So there are two steps to the Content Hub solutioning process. Number one is downloading the content from the Content Hub. And the second part is enabling the content in the respective galleries like data connectors and analytics and all of that. So in the second step, you can pick and choose which ones you want to enable.
Great, thanks. The next one is the TI that feeds to the various Defender products. Can we feed that into Sentinel for use against things like on-premise network devices or sysmon data?
Yes, absolutely. So for folks who are not aware of this, the first thing I talked about today was the Graph Security API that integrates both with Microsoft Defender 365 as well as Microsoft Sentinel. There is a field called Target Product in the Graph schema. You can either add Sentinel to that or M365 Defender. And on the basis of the target product, it will make into that particular product. So yes, if you're using the Graph API, you can definitely go ahead and push that TI to both Defender and Sentinel. If you're not using Graph API and you're getting the TI and Defender from various different mechanisms, you can also create playbooks, which can essentially get the indicators from like a query API or a get API from Defender and ingest it into Sentinel using the Graph API or the create API of Sentinel threat intelligence. So definitely there are various ways and avenues by which you can get TI that is making into Defender into Sentinel as well.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is there a limit on the amount of TI that can be put into Sentinel? Will it accrue additional cost?
The answers, I'll put the answer in two parts because the question was twofold. There is no limit of TI that you can ingest into Sentinel as of date. There is no upper limit on the number of indicators you can ingest. With that being said, if you're using the Graph API, the only limit we have is we allow only a max of 100 indicators per API call, but there is no limit on the number of calls, which essentially makes no limit on the number of indicators in Sentinel. It's just the limit that exists on the number of indicators per call, which is 100 as of today for Microsoft Sentinel. And answering the next question around costing, you do not pay anything for the actual data connector itself to use the connector, but you do pay charges for storing this threat intelligence data in the TI-LA table. It's just a very minimal storage cost. It is around $2.34 for a million indicators that you store in this in the table. So it is not pretty significant, but yes, you do pay for the storage, but nothing for the ingestion actually.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is, can a single MISP server use the same key across multiple tenants to ingest TI, or will several keys be required?
I think you can use the same key for ingesting data into different tenants. It is just that you will have to use MISP to push TI into different graph tenants if you want to make it into those different workspaces under that tenant.
Great,
but
thanks.
I would recommend, this is something you need to go check with the MISP documentation, but as far as I think it would be that it would accept the same key, just something to check within the MISP documentation.
Great, thank you. And the last one we have is, does the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Analytics rule look at custom log tables in Sentinel or just the built-in tables when alerting on TI matches?
Yeah, so since we talked about two kinds of analytics, the TI map analytics don't look at custom logs as well, because we don't know how your custom logs are structured. We cannot know the fields of it, but what you can do is use the existing TI map rules because they are KQL based. You can clone them, tweak their KQL to point towards your custom logs. The Microsoft Threat Intelligence Matching Analytics does not as well look in the custom logs. Right now, we match only against a subset of even the existing, out of the box tables. We match against Ceph, DNS, and syslog right now. Yes, there is no capability of matching against custom logs.
Great. Thank you, Rijuta, Cristhofer, and Sreedhar for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/security-community. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/securityWebinarFeedback. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.